Stunt World. It's the Hall of Fame show, featuring the Hall of Fame inductees performing their own specialties. Cars, motorcycles, aerials, jet skis, high falls, and more. Watch the seemingly impossible. Witness the unbelievable. Are they crazy? Is it an addiction? Fasten your seatbelts. It's Stunt World, the Hall of Fame. On previous episodes of Stunt World.
Hello, my name is Spanky Spangler, and I'm a professional stuntman.
The one I had the most trouble with was a car jumped into water. The car turned upside down and got stuck in the mud. I was underwater for 3 minutes and 18 seconds. And for 2.5 minutes, I held my breath and did some pretty big stunts. One called the Sky Crash, where I crashed 2 cars in midair off ramps. A lot of high falls. Jumped out of a helicopter into a moving truck and different things like that.
Frankie, it's my honor to present you with this miniature replica of Stunt World's perpetual Hall of Fame monument.
Legendary stuntman Ricky D.
Some might ask, do you have a death wish?
No, I do like to take on the ultimate, which would be total destruction.
Go behind the scenes of an enormous action-packed super feature. We watched a tragedy avoided by our quick-thinking Hall of Famer, Ricky D., as he was able to save a stuntman trapped underwater.
I'm telling you, this is not for everybody. A man almost died right now.
Come here! Has he got it? Has he got the air?
No, we need to push this thing on him.
Let's see what's coming up for you on today's show.
Photojournalist Jeff Werner as this year's inductee.
Stuntmen and daredevils are not exactly the same thing. Stuntmen usually plan out a stunt real well. It's scientific, and they know that they're going to be okay at the end of the stunt, whereas a daredevil plans it out, but he doesn't always know he's going to be all right at the end of the stunt. And I've covered a few stunts where they didn't quite make it.
It's probably the best of the single-person sports, where it's always against yourself that you're competing and not somebody else.
So Frank is still doing it, I think, but I don't know, I'll have to check, because after a few of those, you walk funny for a while.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this special episode of Stunt World International Legends of Dare. I'm your host, Frank Simpson, and this show is a monumental tribute to this year's inductees into the Stunt World Hall of Fame. We are proud to announce 4 new inductees into the Stunt World Hall of Fame this year, and their names will be immortalized on the Stunt World's perpetual Hall of Fame monument. Their names will be alongside such greats as Evel Knievel, Raymay Julian, and Dar Robinson. This program profiles the year's Hall of Fame inductees and their contributions into the stunt world, along with other notable scenes that stand out in the world of stunts. This man and his cameras are responsible for making numerous stunt people famous, including some of our inductees here today. This year, Stunt World has created a special introduction category titled The Makers, and we are proud to name photojournalist Jeff Werner as this year's inductee. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell me, what's it like being on the other side of the camera rather than performing the stunt, shooting the stunt?
Oh, well, I don't think I sweat quite as much as they do, but I get to see a lot of interesting and exciting things all over the world without actually having to put my life at risk. Although sometimes I get a little too close to the action. It gets a little hot when the explosions go off or the car roofs go flying over my head, but I've learned to duck pretty quick.
Now, actually, you can't capture all of these things on one frame of film. Well, you do, actually, but you have to shoot many frames of film to get that. What is the process behind preparing for shooting a stunt?
Well, I shoot stills for the magazines around the world. And to shoot stunts, I like to do it just like a video company would, only I use maybe a dozen cameras at once, simultaneously, with remote control units. So I'll set up cameras all over to get the entire action, from beginning to middle to end, the overall, the stunts, and certain angles of it that'll make good still pictures. And then I'm usually in the middle, panning with a camera, or at some point where I need to get the best shots. And my foot will push a button, and all my other cameras will go off, and I'll end up with about 1,200 pictures in 3 to 5 seconds.
And then how do you select the 1 or 2 or 3 photos that you feel are the best?
Well, I narrow it down to the best pictures from each angle, and then editors narrow it down even more, too much sometimes, but Usually a good stunt will see 6, 7, or even 8 pictures in a center spread.
I once heard an explanation of yours talking about a daredevil and a stunt person. Could you share that with us again? What is the difference between the two?
Well, it's a bit of a fine line, but stuntmen and daredevils are not exactly the same thing. Stuntmen usually plan out a stunt real well. It's scientific, and they know that they're going to be okay at the end of the stunt, whereas a daredevil plans it out, but he doesn't always know he's going to be all right at the end of the stunt. And I've covered a few stunts where they didn't quite make it.
Didn't quite make it. Things didn't quite go right. We thought it would be interesting to look at the mental aspect of being a stuntman. We talked with renowned sports psychologist Dr. Terence Sandbeck, and this is what he had to say. Doctor, tell us, what type of person would risk their very existence performing stunts?
I think it's a person who is probably has a lot of capabilities, a lot of talent, and a lot of very sharp characteristics that the average person doesn't have. For example, they have, I think, certainly the developed skills of an athlete, a person who is capable of sizing up a situation very quickly, a person who is very coordinated, person who is able to see situations and judge what the consequences of taking an action will be, a person who has a remarkable sense of timing, what test pilots call spatial awareness, knowing exactly where you are in space and time and where you're going to be in the next instant. Also, there are people who probably were born, have a genetic disposition for high stimulation. Now, we all vary on that. A lot of psychologists are currently studying newborns the moment they're born, and we notice that there's a wide variation in temperament. Some of the kids are very passive and quiet and carefree, and others are jumpy and nervous and sort of like want to get on with life. So that we all vary in terms of the level of stimulation that we need to stay alive. We all need stimulation of some sort. For some people, that stimulation might be nothing more than reading a book. But for other people, the stimulation takes a variety of forms, whether it's doing stunts for a living or whether it's getting in trouble being shot by a policeman. All of that brings up inside a person adrenaline, various chemicals which feel good. So the bottom line is the person does stunts because it feels good.
Are stunt performers just looking for fame and fortune, or are they addicted to the excitement?
Well, I think in the first part of the question, why not look for fame and fortune? Who isn't? I think the average person would love to have fame and fortune. That has to be a part of it. I think it's a good part of it. What person wouldn't do it? But in terms of addiction, that's certainly a word that is misused a lot today. I prefer to think that a stunt performer is keyed into the adrenaline rush, the excitement, again, as we mentioned before, that high stimulation, which is really a part of being alive. I suspect that top-notch stunt performers would probably prefer to be dead rather than not to do stunts, because that is what, there is no life without doing the stunts. You can't live without having the excitement, the rush, and all that. But I don't think it's an addiction, because addiction has the connotation that it's bad, that it's somehow, as the popular term, dysfunctional, that it's a destructive element that destroys your life. I see nothing wrong with doing that. I think maybe instead of addiction, maybe other words, would come to mind, such as dedicated.
You have created an incredible library of film and stills over the years. How about some scenarios of some of the people that you've covered? Let's throw out a name. Reckless Rex and Bow Wow, the 138-foot record.
Well, I've done half a dozen or more stunts with him. And we did one with a dog jumping over 30 cars. The dog did very well, as a matter of fact.
You mentioned Dar Robinson earlier. many slides on him, I'm sure.
Yes, we did a lot together for That's Incredible. And the best stunt I saw him do was on the movie Stick with Burt Reynolds in Florida when he went out the top of the building, shooting as he's going down. Yeah, he got all 6 shots off, too.
That's an incredible. John Holland jumps motorcycle over 50 cars.
And, well, it was 50 cars, except I think he crashed on the 46th and kept on crashing. That was one of the best crashes I ever covered.
You do have an incredible history. Rod Woodworth, 32-car motorcycle crash.
About 10, 12 years ago, and he tried for the world's record in somebody's backyard, right, or open field. I think his father sponsored it, but they sent me out, and I shot it, and he almost made it 180 feet, but not quite. He hit the last car, did a somersault, and broke several bones.
Brian Carlson, risky stunt backfires.
Brian Carson is one of the best track stuntmen going right now. He does car jumps. He's jumped 4 trucks, which I just shot him doing recently. Last year he did it too, but he made it to the end of the truck and then did a flip right into one of my cameras. Camera survived though. Got one of the best shots, or the last shots it ever got, actually.
How about Roger Riddle, jumps motorcycle backwards?
Oh yeah, Mr. Backwards, I think his name was, or something like that. I was in London and I came back specially to shoot him in Indiana or someplace, and he goes backwards over cars. He sits backwards on a motorcycle, keeps going. He did 6 cars. He kept building up. He told me he was going to finally crash on one of them, so I was preparing for that. He did.
Dan Coco?
Dan is one of the best high jumpers in the world. He's got several world records, which haven't been broken yet. And I photographed him jumping from the top of Vegas World, going 330-some feet into an airbag, which was an amazing picture.
Jeff Winke.
Jeff Winke has this little stunt where he takes a motorcycle rather, and crashes into a car. Then he goes flying over cars into boxes, which he tries not to miss. Yeah.
Jay Kern, the snowboard hot dogger.
Jay was a good friend of mine. He unfortunately passed away about a year ago when he missed an airbag on a high fall stunt. But he did a good stunt for me where he took a snowboard and went through an explosion off a hill and came out of these flames.
We mentioned Spanky Spangler earlier, and he's also an inductee today.
Yeah, well, the best stunt I ever saw Spanky do, in fact, it was so good I shot it twice at the Houston Astrodome when he took 2 cars with Randy Hill, and they went head-on 50 miles an hour and lived. At least I think he's alive.
Yeah, he's here today. Frank Parks?
Yeah, Frank Parks, he blows up cars with him in them. And, you know, they blow up huge explosions. I shot that at night with several cameras to get the exposure right. You know, so Frank is still doing it, I think, but I don't know, I'll have to check, 'cause a few of those, you walk funny for a while.
I can imagine. And finally, Jake Lombard.
Oh, yeah, Jake Lombard is a James Bond stuntman. He does a lot of the aerial work on James Bond movies. We photographed him getting blown off a bridge. Kai Michelson had a device where he got blown off a bridge and catapulted onto an airplane net that was following an airplane. He missed, but his parachute worked.
Do you think that stunt performers often overestimate their own capabilities?
Well, again, only the dead ones do.
That's a good point, Doctor. Very good point.
I suspect that when you're going into a stunt, you may have overestimated what you can do just as you get to the point of contact. But again, the good ones are able to compensate. In fact, I suspect if we could take a picture of that, the good stunt person wouldn't even know they did it. It's intuitive. It has to happen so fast that you're not even consciously aware of the adjustments, the tiny adjustments that are being made. And again, the good ones, the ones that are best at doing it are the ones that stay alive. But how many people really know the planning that goes into a stunt? It's not something that's public knowledge. I think it's because of that the public doesn't appreciate stunt people as much as they should. But when we watch a stunt person do it, they do it so well. It's like Oh, well, that didn't look too hard. I could probably do that. Not knowing all the things that could go wrong. Part of that may be due to television, movies, and books, because we see people shot all the time. And then they get out and we see them in another performance, and we don't really know how painful that is. We don't really understand that this person who does suffer an accident, say in a stunt, it affects their whole life. It affects their family, or other jobs, or their income, or just having a good time and being friends. But we don't see that. We just see the moment of the accident. And so human beings have a tremendous capacity for shutting out parts of things. And I think what people respond to is the excitement of the moment, forgetting all the details that come with them. And that's unfortunate.
Now, let's take a look at some future Hall of Famers. Flying Mike Brown, world-renowned motorcycle jumper. Mike Seipel, the best barefoot water skier in the world. Stay tuned for more of Stunt World, the Hall of Fame.
Is there any one thing you like better than others, or are they all exciting?
Well, good fire stunts are always good. Big explosions are nice, especially when you remember to bring your earplugs. And high falls scare the dickens out of me, but those can be interesting too. I've covered 3 world records, or 4 world records actually. Once I was actually sitting next to a girl when she jumped out of a helicopter, which is quite an experience when she's not wearing a parachute, you know, and there's this little postage stamp down there she's trying to hit. But anything that's real visual and real exciting is what I like. I've done stuff all over the world with a variety of stunt people and TV shows and movies.
You mentioned the top of the car flying over your head. What was the closest call that you've ever had?
That was probably it.
That was it. Tell us the details.
I was in France. I was shooting a couple, this married couple who do stunts together, and they took this French car and went about 90 miles an hour right into 3 other cars, right through them. And I had to be real close because of the angles. There was a pole behind me, and to get the best shots, I had to be in the middle. So the gendarmes had everybody else about 200 feet back, and I was real close. And they hit. The car roof came right off. I went like that. It went right over my head, and I kept on shooting.
A true professional.
Now let's turn the clock back and take a look at a past legend.
Frank Richards, who was known as the Human Fort, developed a variation on Wilnow's act. He wasn't fired out of a cannon, he was fired at by a cannon. It was no fake. The cannonball weighed 100 pounds. During 1975, Evel Knievel suffered over 400 bone fractures. Yet there's no record that Frank Richards ever so much as cracked a rib in his entire lifetime.
What are your feelings today concerning the new category that's been created for photojournalists?
I'm honored to be the first one to take home the trophy with that. That's great. There are people who are behind the scenes who help the stunt people become better known and help them prosper in the stunt community. And I hope that I've done something with my pictures to do that.
And you have. Jeff, I am honored again to present to you this miniature replica of Stunt World's Perpetual Hall of Fame monument. I would like to congratulate you as our first inductee into this special category. titled The Makers.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
We hope you've enjoyed your visit with these legendary stunt people and special guests. Until next time, from Stunt World and all of our Hall of Fame inductees, goodbye and many happy landings.